Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today in this offline demonstration video, I am going to demonstrate the practical aspects of reproductive system, male reproductive system, histologically. So to start with, the component of reproductive system which we have to cover today, they include testes, the whole structure of testes, then the ducts of male reproductive system, and the underlying two or the main ducts. There are some other ducts as well which we will discuss, but the two of the main ducts are ductus epididymis and ductus deferens or vas deferens. Before that, within the testes, the initial ductular system includes the straight tubules, retitestes, and afferent ductules. So these initial three components will be discussed along with the testes, and then the ductal main parts will be discussed as epididymis and ductus deferens. Then there are male accessory sex glands. There is urethra and penis. And the last topic, we are going to skip the histological features of male accessory sex glands. We will only discuss these features of urethra and penis. The accessory sex gland will be discussed with you people in the theory class. To get an overview, if you get a sagittal section of a testes, the main component that we will look at, that within the testes, the outermost covering inside the scrotum, which is the skin pouch in which the testes are present in animals. The outermost covering is made up of a connective tissue that is very dense, has lots of collagen fiber in it, and that connective tissue is termed as tunica albuginea. And on the posterior side, this tunica albuginea connective tissue penetrates inside the testes, and that particular component will be termed as mediastinum testes. And then from mediastinum testes, then there will be branches of connective tissue in the form of septum or septa, which will again move towards the periphery and will join the tunica albuginea. So this is the whole connective tissue component which is going to make the outer boundary, and then within the testes it is going to form the boundaries and to form boundaries of lobules. Then if we talk about the individual lobule, within an individual lobule there is a seminiferous tubule. It is a tube which is highly convoluted. There could be 1 to 4 tubes present in an individual lobule, and there are multiple lobules present in testes which are separated by connective tissue boundary coming from mediastinum moving out towards tunica albuginea in the shape of septum. This seminiferous tubule is lined by the stratified germinal epithelium. We will discuss in upcoming slides. And then the last portion of this seminiferous tubule, this is basically the site. The seminiferous tubule is the site where the spermatogenesis is happening or sperm production is happening within the testes, and from that point onward, the last portion of the seminiferous tubule is termed as straight tubule. Then this straight tubule opens into the network in connective tissue, which is lined by epithelium. Networks, or it is basically a channels making a network within the connective tissue mediastinum. That connective tissue channels are termed as retitestes, and then from retitestes there are about 10 to 20 ducts coming out through mediastinum outside. Those ducts will be termed as afferent ductules or afferent ducts. Then these ducts open into the head of the epididymis. Then there are different parts of the epididymis, and then outside the epididymis, in spermatic cord, the main component, which is the tubular portion coming from the testes, is the ductus deferens. So this is a basic overview, a schematic diagram giving us a basic overview of the main testes and its ducts component. Now, if we look at the testes, they are ovoid in shape, and they are the organs responsible for the production of sperm, which is collectively termed as spermatogenesis. As we already discussed, that it is covered by a connective tissue capsule, which is made up of dense collagenous fibers, tunica albuginea, and then There are connective tissue septa, which are dividing the testes into separate lobules. Within lobules, the highly coiled tube, which is termed as seminiferous tubule. Between the lobules, there is the stroma component, which is septa, which have loose connective. Sorry, stroma is the component of connective tissue within the lobule. Between adjacent seminiferous tubule, which is loose connective tissue, don't have any smooth muscles within lobule, and it is highly vascular. And this is the part within lobule, stroma, connective tissue, which have the interstitial cells or leading cells, the cells responsible for the production of testosterone inside the testes. More theoretical, moving onward. Now on the left side, this is a cross section taken from testes, and adjacent testes, this is the epididymis. Here is the head. Then here we will have the body, and then from that point onward, it will travel on upward with tail and ductus deferens. If we talk about the testes on outside, you can easily differentiate an eosinophilic component on outside making the boundary. This is the tunicalvogenia component as indicated by this arrow toward the right side. And now on the posterior side, this connective tissue penetrate inside. So here it is forming the mediastinum. And then from that mediastinum, you can easily distinguish there are whitish boundaries moving inside the testes, and then from inside medial side to toward the periphery part, these are making the boundaries of the lobules, and within these boundaries there are the eosinophilic component, which are the lobules, and these lobules are actually lined by seminiferous tubules. If we look at a more magnified portion, if we just took an example that we have taken a rectangular piece from this portion and then displayed on the right side. Now just look at the outermost eosinophilic fibrous dense irregular connective tissue component, which is termed as tunicalvogenia. Within tunicalvogenia, there is a vascular tunic, or the component which have lots of blood vessels in it. Some were discussed in some of the texts as vascular tunic, which is making the capsule or the outer boundary or connective tissue covering of the testes. And now just looking at a single lobule, there are multiple sections. Some of them are perfectly round cross sections, some of them are tangential cross sections, some are exhibiting the longitudinal sections, but they are all indicating the highly coiledness of the tubules which are present within the lobules. So these are all cross sections of seminiferous tubules which are visible. And between tubules, this is the component where we were discussing about the stroma component in the last slide, just now where the cursor is moving. This is the component within the lobule between the seminiferous tubule cross section where stroma is present. It is loose connective tissue without smooth muscles, but the important thing, it have clusters of cells in it, which are indicated by all the three blue arrows here, which are interstitial cells, which are appearing more eosinophilic. We will discuss about these cells in detail in upcoming slides. But just looking at this, a medium magnified image, they are quite easily distinguished from the seminiferous tubule because of their stainings and their clusters. If we talk about seminiferous tubule, the central part is the lumen of this seminiferous tubule, and it is lined by a stratified geminal epithelium. Stratified means an epithelium which is arranged in multiple layers. So easily you can distinguish there are multiple layers of cells, one above the other. So this is the stratified geminal epithelium lining, and this is actually the epithelium or the cells which are involved in the process of spermatogenesis. So here the term germinal is particularly referring to the process of spermatogenesis, which is quite different. The germinal epithelium of ovary don't have any role in the process of oogenesis. It is just the outermost covering in the shape of serous membrane. But within the kidney, the seminiferous tubules are lined by stratified germinal epithelium. So the germinal word is actually implying or indicating that this is the epithelium which is involved in the process of spermatogenesis. So from this point onward, now we are more looking at higher magnifications of seminal tubules. The seminal tubules are actually composed of cells which are involved in spermatogenesis, and the first cell which are located at the very base of the seminal tubule, just above the basement membrane, they are spermatogonia cells. There are two kinds of spermatogonia: dark, lightly stained, or type A or type B. These cells are adjacent to the basement membrane. First, they have large rounded nucleus. Then the next level of cells above them, they will exhibit, they are the largest cells of the germinal epithelium, rounded in appearance, and the particular characteristics about them are that their nucleus is having bundles of dense chromosomes in it. These cells are primary spermatocytes. Above them, the next primary spermatocytes will change into further develop into in the process of spermatogenesis in the secondary spermatocytes. But in histological sections, the secondary spermatocytes are very rare to observe. The third type of cells, starting from the spermatogonia, which are present at the base, darkly staining nucleus without bundles of chromosomes appearing present at the base, they are the spermatogonia. Then the next level of cell, the spermatogonia dividing. I am not describing what type of division is happening because spermatogenesis is more of a theoretical component और इसकी थ्योरी आप लोगों ने खुद पढ़नी है, तो I am just skipping that particular division. Naming, I am just skipping the name. So the spermatogonia will divide to form the first kind of cells which are largest size, having rounded nucleus, but nucleus is giving a characteristic bundleness of the dense chromosomes in it. And then spermatocytes will change into the secondary spermatocytes, but they are rarely seen in histological section. This is again an assignment which people have to look in your books. This is a just 2-line assignment. Why they are not observed visible in histological sections, and then these secondary spermatocytes will go division, again skipping the name of division, and will convert into the spermatocytes, which are comparatively smaller cells, more near to the rounded, towards the lumen of the spleminiferous tubule. They have more denser nucleus, but without giving bundles of chromosomes. The nucleus is becoming more dense, it is more rounded. The cell is comparatively small in size, so is the nucleus, it is comparatively small in size. And then these spermatids will undergo a morphological change, which is specifically named as part of spermatogenesis, and they will change into a proper sperm shape towards the lumen, which is the very these cells are more towards the central part of the lumen of seminal tubule, along with all these spermatogenic cells which we have discussed now and identified on pointer. There is another type of cell which doesn't undergo any division while they are present in seminal tubule. They are large columnar shaped cells which are involved in the blood barrier within seminal tubule. How it is forming blood barrier, it is again a theoretical component, so I'm not going to detail of this topic. These cells are present individually between the spermatogenic cells, and their characteristic feature is that they have a very large nucleus, eukaryotic nucleus. We will discuss, okay, this cell is coming in upcoming slides. So till now we have discussed about the spermatogenic cells, and we will discuss about the sertolized cells or sustentacular cell, which is a kind of sportive cell which doesn't undergo any division. In the upcoming slide, and between seminal tubule, we have already said that there are clusters of eosinophilic cells, which are indicated by this black pointer in the lower slide. These are the leading cells or interstitial cells. Now again, schematic diagram in which you can see that there are two sections of adjacent seminiferous tubule. Now the more complete one is the upper one. From the basal lamina, which is the basement membrane, the first kind of cells which are present in seminiferous tubule are spermatogonia. From spermatogonia, the next level of cells are primary spermatocytes. Then in this schematic diagram, they have shown the secondary spermatocytes, but in the actual histological slides, they are very rarely visible. And then the uppermost cells from secondary spermatocytes, the more rounded cells will be spermatids, and then spermatids will undergo a kind of division, which is in which they are going to attain proper head, neck, and tail-like appearance of a sperm. And in between these cells, there are proper columnar cells, which are very large, covering all the length of the from basement membrane till towards the lumen, all the length of the geminal epithelium, stratified epithelium. Individual cells present between them, having very large characteristic nucleus with a very prominent single nucleolus in it. These are the satellite cells, which are supportive and nourishing the developing immature sperms. Again, okay, spermatogenic cells. Oh, they are coming upward. Again, a section taken from seminiferous tubule, where the basement membrane is present here. Outside basement membrane, there are certain smooth muscles. In seminiferous tubule, they are not present in the interstitium or stroma. Just inside the basement membrane, these large rounded cells without bundle-like appearance of chromosome, they are spermatogonia. Then above them, these rounded cells with clusters of chromosomes appearing in the nucleus, they are primary spermatocytes. Above them, these smaller rounded cells where the cursor is moving, these are spermatids, and then spermatids will convert into the immature full morphological change of sperm. And in between them, there are the proper columnar cells, which are having a large nucleus, and within the nucleus there is a prominent single nucleolus. These are Sertoli cells, and this is again a micrograph taken from your book, in which a proper cross section of the seminiferous tubule is visible. So I will request you people, when you are going to see this micrograph, to consult your book for the theoretical aspect. It will be the same which we are discussing till now. Then this is more about spermatogenesis. I'm just going to skip this slide. This is more talking about the three main phases of spermatogenesis. First is mitotic division of spermatogonia. Second is the meiotic division of spermatocytes, and this last one is spermiogenesis, which is the morphological transformation. So I have just given you the clue about the spermatogenesis phases. Now moving toward the sportive cells, tentacular cells, which are fertilized cells, जो उनको हम थोड़ा सा पीछे देख चुके हैं seminiferous tubule के अंदर. They are large columnar cells, pale cells, broad at the base, then on the towards the lumen. But the important thing, they have a irregular euchromatic nucleus with a large single prominent nucleolus. Then on the apical side, they form the cytoplasmic fold, जहाँ से developing spermatids nourishment लेते हैं. So just look at this cell, which is more wider towards base than towards the apical side, more columnar in shape. But the important thing is they have a large nucleus with a single large prominent nucleolus. So this is satellite cell nucleus, और इसकी न्यूक्लियस की बेस पे ही आपने पॉइंटर पे आइडेंटिफाई करना है, क्योंकि साइटोप्लाज्मिक डिटेल इसकी इतनी विजिबल नहीं होती. So nuclear morphology is more important while categorizing all the spermatogenic cells and satellite cells in seminiferous tubule. The nucleus morphology जरूर ध्यान में रखिएगा. So this is a more medium size cross section taken from seminiferous tubule. They are lined by stratified geminal epithelium, and then in between them the arrows are indicating the cells which are present between seminiferous tubule. In the interstitium, these are the interstitial cells or leading cells. Now moving towards leading cells, these are entirely endocrine cells responsible for the production of testosterone. They are large cells, rounded in appearance, with a vesicular nucleus. Vesicular nuclear mean nucleus which is quite active, means कि यहाँ पे न्यूक्लियर मटेरियल इतना कंडेंस नहीं होगा, न्यूक्लियस के अंदर आपको यूक्रोमेटिन अपीयरेंस नजर आएगी एक्टिवनेस होने की वजह से सेल की. And in certain location of these cells, the cytoplasmic content will be appearing pale due. Why? Because it is involved in the production of testosterone. And testosterone is derived from steroid, triglycerides. So on that basis, the lipids and glycogen content is stored in the cytoplasm, which will give its certain areas of these dark eosinophilic cells the lightness. They are mostly present in clusters, about 50 to 5 to 30 cells clusters, and these are the cells responsible for the production of testosterone. So from this onward, now we are moving towards the tubular portion. So the initial portion of the tubular portion are present within the testes. Now again, we have to take help from a panoramic view of testes, where you can easily distinguish the connective tissue boundary tunica albuginea, and on the posterior side, the tunica albuginea is moving inside to form mediastinum testes. So there are certain lobules, seminiferous tubules. Towards the end, they form a straight duct, which is the straight tubules. And then from that straight tubules, there are large spaces, epithelium-lined spaces, networks, which are present inside the mediastinum, which is collectively this area. So the duct which are appearing, the sections of duct which are appearing in mediastinum lined by epithelium, they are retitestes. And then from retitestes, there are the ducts which are going out into the epididymis. There will be afferent ductules, and then there will be ductus epididymis, and then from ductus epididymis, the duct which are moving in spermatic cord will be ductus deferens. So this is basically an overview. We will start with the straight testicular tubule, which is a straight component of seminiferous tubule, where the seminiferous tubule is opening, connects seminiferous tubule to the retitestes. They are short straight. They are mostly lined by simple squamous or simple columnar epithelium. They are not lined, as was the case by the seminiferous tubule, as they were lined by stratified geminal epithelium. Instead, the straight last portion of the seminiferous tubule, which is straight tubule, they are lined by a simple columnar or simple squamous epithelium, depending upon location. And they are not involved, these columnar or squamous cells are not involved in the process of spermatogenesis. Along with the epithelium, these cell lining straight ductules or tubules have macrophages and lymphocytes. Now, looking at the left side of this micrograph, again taken from your book, the upper micrograph is more medium size, and then the lower micrograph is more magnified portion. Now, looking at the seminiferous tubule, look at this part here. One of the seminiferous tubule is now opening into a straight component, which is the straight tubule, which is more magnified on the lower micrograph. You can easily distinguish that the stratified epithelium is abruptly changing into simple columnar cuboidal or squamous epithelium. Inside the straight tubule, there is no spermatogenesis happening in straight tubules, and now these straight tubules will open into the network channels which are present in the mediastinum connective tissue, lined by simple cuboidal, columnar, or squamous epithelium. Again, there could be simple cuboidal, columnar epithelium. So these are retitestes, and then these retitestes will open into a next level of duct, which are afferent ductules or ductuli afferentia here mentioned. So retitestes will open into them. Now, this is more magnified part of afferent ductule. They are lined by an epithelium which have higher columnar cells, which have cilia, and in between them there are cuboidal cells which are non-ciliated. So the afferent ductules are lined by an epithelium which have simple columnar ciliated cells, and in between them there are simple cuboidal absorptive cells. So due to difference in the columnar and cuboidal height, the epithelium gives its a very characteristic star shape or convoluted appearance to the lumen. So these are the next level of ducts, and then these ducts will open into the ductus epididymis. Now this is again low magnified image on which the lower side is representing seminiferous tubule, and then from seminiferous tubule there are straight tubules. These straight tubules are opening into the network of channels, epithelium lined channels, which are retitestes, and then from retitestes they will open into the efferent ductules from connective tissue of mediastinum, and then they will open into the ductus epididymis. Again, looking at the efferent ductules, the retitestes lead into the efferent ductules, and then these efferent ductules will lead towards the head of the epididymis. They are lined by simple columnar epithelium, but these columnar cells are ciliated, and in between these columnar cells there are low-heighted cuboidal cells, as being discussed in next point, that the height of two cells, ciliated and non-ciliated cells vary. The ciliated cells are more columnar and the non-ciliated cells are more cuboidal. So they give a characteristic wavy shape appearance to the outline shape to the lumen. And outside there are 3 to 6 layers of loose connective tissue and myofibroblast, which have the ability to contract. Now this is a more magnified cross section taken from efferent ductule. This is the lumen. This is a perfect cross section, and within cross section you can easily distinguish these columnar cells which are ciliated. They are more in height, and in between them there are cuboidal cells which are non-ciliated. So this height, more heighted, low heighted cells give the characteristic convoluted or star shape like appearance to the lumen of the efferent ductules. Outside the basal membrane of these efferent ductules there are stromal component in the shape of connected tissue fibroblast and some smooth muscles. Again, a micrograph representing the cross section of the efferent ductules. The points are elaborated here. And now the next level of duct, which is ductus epididymis, which consists of 3 parts: head, body, and tail. The histological features of all these 3 components are same. They are lined by pseudostratified columnar stereocilia epithelium. I am repeating, the ductus epididymis, which is a component or duct of epididymis, they are lined by pseudostratified columnar stereociliated type of epithelium, in which there are 2 type of cells. The principal cells, which are stereociliated, they are more heighted, and then the basal cells, which are toward base, doesn't reach the luminal side. They are the cells responsible for acting as stem cells for the remaining cells. So looking at the component, the pseudostratified columnar epithelium, it have columnar cells which are stereociliated. Then there it have basal cells which are responsible for the production of lipids and glycogen, but again an important function contributed by these cells. They are acting as stem cells. Below epithelium there is a lamina propria which have more radicular fibers and smooth muscle fibers in between. Again a more magnified portion where you can easily distinguish between the columnar cells, stereociliated, and lower cells which are basal cells. And inside the lumen you can easily distinguish the sperm, because epididymis act as the storage house for sperms, and this is the actual site where immature some sperms coming from seminiferous tubule get the maturation. Now this is a cross section taken from epididymis. Now in ductus epididymis, as you can see in lower magnified image, there will be ductus epididymis and there will be efferent ductules visible, which on more magnified part easily distinguished from each other. And I will ask you people in your exam these 2 type of questions. Then within the same micrograph there will be 2 different levels of ducts. as being indicated by the labeled part. On the upper side of this micrograph, there are the afferent ductules, which have proper columnar and cuboidal cells, which are giving it a star-like appearance. And on the lower side of this micrograph, you can easily distinguish a more heighted, more wide. Basically, looking at the lower part of this micrograph, you can easily distinguish that there are cross sections which are perfectly rounded. There is no star-shaped appearance of the lumen. And when we will magnify this portion, you will see that there are stereocilia in it, and at certain location of the cross section of epididymis, you will find that there are stored sperms visible in the lumen. This is a very characteristic feature. Now, in this micrograph, I have deliberately added the two high magnified portions of epididymis and ductus deferens. You can easily distinguish the lumen difference, more rounded, more heighted epithelium, columnar and cuboidal cells. And below that, in ductus epididymis, the next thing is that below some connective tissue, there is smooth muscle cells, which are important for the contraction of ductus epididymis. The next level of duct, which travels inside the spermatic cord, it is ductus deferens or vas deferens. It is lined by mucosa, then there is muscularis externa, and then there is adventitia. If we talk about mucosa, so it is again lined by pseudostratified columnar epithelium, but its height is comparatively less. And in the terminal portion, there are certain parts where the epithelium change into simple columnar as well. But compared to ductus epididymis, the height of the uh, pseudostratified columnar epithelium in ductus deferens is comparatively less, but it has also stereocilia in it. But this epithelium and some connective tissue below, lamina propria, forms lots of mucosal folds, which will help you to distinguish the epithelium of ductus deferens and ductus epididymis. Along with that, it has very thick muscle coat in muscularis externa. The muscularis externa of ductus deferens is composed of three sublayers: inner longitudinal, middle circular, and outer again longitudinal. Now just look at this cross sections taken from the spermatic cord. The very center part is vas deferens, which is now magnified here. So look at the mucosa component; it is highly folded, but the epithelium, pseudostratified epithelium, is not visible at this magnification. Then the folded base is composed of connective tissue, which is comparatively dense, and outside dense connective tissue, there is a thin longitudinal smooth muscle layer, then there is a thick circular smooth muscle layer, and then there is again outer longitudinal smooth muscle layer, which is comparatively more thick than the inner longitudinal muscle layer. So it is highly muscular. The vas deferens or ductus deferens is highly muscular because of the three concentric layers of outer longitudinal, inner longitudinal, middle circular smooth muscle layers, and outside this vas deferens is connected by all the other component of the spermatic cord by connective tissue, which is again highly vascular. This connective tissue layer will be only termed as tunica adventitia, where the cursor is moving, where the sum of the adipose tissue is visible. Now, no cross-section magnified image taken from your book, so you can easily distinguish that this is last part, where some portions are aligned by simple columnar epithelium and some pseudostratified columnar epithelium. But the main thing that the epithelium, along with the lamina propria mucosal component, is highly folded. Lamina propria से बाहर आपको inner longitudinal muscle नजर आ रहे हैं, outer longitudinal muscle, and then middle circular muscles, and then outside there is only adventitia, connective tissue. So this is the perfect histology description of ductus deferens. Then again, a more magnified image of ductus deferens, where the stereocilia portion is visible, the pseudostratified columnar epithelium is visible. Below epithelium, there is some smooth connective tissue component, and outside connective tissue component, there is inner longitudinal smooth muscle, middle circular smooth muscle, and outer longitudinal smooth muscle, which forms the thick smooth muscle layer or muscularis externa of ductus deferens, and outside it, it is only connective tissue adventitia. Now, if we talk about the male copulatory organ, penis, the cross section, if we take cross section from the animals, the first and most important thing that will be visible under the microscope, that you will see three cross sections of cylinders which forms the erectile tissue of the penis in animals. Those cylindrical cross sections, two on the dorsal side and one on the ventral side, they are termed as cavernous, corpuses, which are termed as body. The upper two corpuses are termed as corpus cavernosus, and the lower one is termed as corpus spongiosa. And outside these corpuses, there is a very dense connective tissue layer, which is termed as deep fascia of the penis, which is the tunica albuginea. This tunica albuginea connective tissue covers these three cylindrical corpuses from outside, and outside this tunica albuginea there is the hypodermis or superficial fascia of the penis, and outside there is the outermost skin covering of the penis. So this is the basic outline, and then there are a lot of blood vessels which are coming inside the male copulatory organ to provide the blood which help to in the process of erection during the copulation. Though that it will require a lot of blood to come inside the body of the penis in these erectile tissues, which are arranged in three cylindrical components. Two of them are the dorsal, the corpus cavernosus, and one of them is the lower ventral, which is the corpus spongiosa. The one of the main thing that the male urethra travels whole length of the penis in the ventral side in the center of the corpus spongiosa. And this corpus spongiosa actually form the prepuce of the penis. No, not it doesn't form the prepuce. So this corpus spongiosa, which is on the ventral side, and the center which male urethra is traveling, form the glans penis, the last part of the penis. The would now look at the histological structure of cross sections of penis. So this is how it look like. On outside there is the epithelium of skin. Below it is the connective tissue component of the dermis, and then below is the hypodermis. The hypodermis is consists of loose connective tissue. This is why in animals and humans as well that the skin above penis is more loosely arranged, and then below hypodermis there is the connective tissue component which is covering all the three cylindrical components from outside, which is the tunica albuginea component, and within tunica albuginea you can see lots of cross section of blood vessels. This is more highly vascular component, and within all these cavernuses there are blood filled sinuses spaces present, endothelial line spaces present in all these connective tissue cavernuses or the corpuses. There are endothelium line spaces which are termed as sinuses. So blood will engorge inside these. When the erection is going to happen, the arterial blood supply will increase, and then that blood is going to engorge in these sinuses, and they will exert the pressure on the veins. So they will get, to certain extent they will get collapsed, और वो blood जहाँ engorge करके रहेगा और erection रहेगी उस एनिमल के अंदर ड्यूरिंग द प्रोसेस ऑफ कपुलेशन. The connective tissue covering of the corpus spongiosum is more thick, and this actually helps कि वो जो साइनसेस हैं वो ज़्यादा प्रेशर एक्सर्ट ना कर सकें, और जो urethral opening है which is the central most part in corpus spongiosum, the urethra is traveling in the central most, वो बिल्कुल उसकी जो ल्यूमेन है वो कोलैप्स ना कर दे. So these two corpus cavernosa and single corpus spongiosa form the total erectile tissue of the male copulatory organ, और उनके अंदर जो sinuses हैं वो engorge होते हैं, उनके अंदर blood आके engorge करता है arterial side. If we talk about the male urethra, the male urethra is lined by pseudostratified columnar epithelium and in last part there will be stratified columnar epithelial lining as well. Below epithelium there is connective tissue, which is now corresponding along with the connective tissue of corpus spongiosa, and along in this connective tissue, which is representing the lamina propria, there are the mucus secreting urethral glands, and their ducts, which are lined by stratified epithelium, will open into the urethral surface, and this mucus secretion will come out during the process of erection. तो म्यूकस ग्लैंड्स मौजूद होती हैं बिलो एपिथेलियम इन लैमिना प्रोप्रिया, which are mucus secreting glands or urethral glands इनको कहते हैं. Then the lining epithelium also have certain mucus secreting glands, and one of the characteristic feature of the lining epithelium in male urethra that it forms certain depressions जिनको urethral lacuna भी कहा जाता है. They are not straight, simple, rounded, but the epithelium form invaginations. Those invaginations are termed as urethral lacunas. और इन lacunas से नीचे connective tissue के अंदर म्यूकोसिकेटिंग ग्लैंड्स होते हैं, और इसका कनेक्टिव टिश्यू लैमिना प्रोप्रिया का कार्पस स्पंजियोसा के कनेक्टिव टिश्यू के साथ मिलता है, और उसके अंदर फिर आपको साइनसेस मिलेंगे, एंडोथेलियम लाइन स्पेसेस मिलेंगी विच गेट इंगॉर्ज्ड विद ब्लड. तो इसी तरह के साइनसेस आपको कार्पस कैवर्नोसा में भी ऊपर मिलेंगे, टू सिलेंड्रिकल कंपोनेंट व्हिच आर डॉर्सली लोकेटेड. With this, now we are finished with the descriptive portion. So I will share with you people with the video and the PPT and the homework sheet. So we will have an overview about this component in the upcoming Thursday practical class. With this, now I am finishing the meeting.